Anyway, welcome everyone. My name is Joshua Roy, and I'm a seminar leader and life coach, and I've been running seminars in Brisbane now for the last about 4 or 5 years. Now with this new pandemic that's just occurred, I've sort of branched out and thought, well, let's hit some of the major cities in Australia. And it's actually quite easy because now that it's over Zoom, it's quite simple and easy to connect with everyone. So I'd like to welcome you here tonight. We're going to learn some NLP tonight. If you've turned up, then you're here to learn some of the basics of NLP. Just so I get a feel for where some of you are, maybe let's find out from maybe 2 or 3 of you why you're here and what it is you'd like to actually get out of tonight. Now, Sherry, you're the one who's shown up one of the first. Can you let me know why? Like, who are you? Why are you here? And what are you hoping to get out of tonight?
I also live in Brisbane.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. I just learnt about Zoom from YouTube and the late night show hosts in America.
Okay.
And so I thought, I'll have a look. And I did my first, I had a tutorial today. So yeah, I joined that. And yeah, so far so good. And then I just was looking up groups, I've been isolated for other reasons since November, so.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'm not in prison or anything.
There's no biggie to you. You haven't got one of those ankle.
No. But,
GPS.
Just reach out to people. That's all. Yeah.
Oh, good on you. Nice to have you here. Nice to have you, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Where are you from?
Hi, mate. I'm in Brisbane as well.
Okay, good stuff. Look at anybody. No?
No, sorry. Go ahead.
What brings you here tonight?
I've just started as a life coach. I'm doing an advanced level 2 advanced practitioner course, and I've been doing a bit of research on the NLP because it'll be some of the stuff that I'll cover later on, and it's I find it just super interesting and something
Absolutely.
I really want to become proficient at.
Yeah, well, this is a good thing for you tonight. I've been studying NLP now for, I suppose it's going on about 15 or 20 years since the Tony Robbins tapes. Mm-hmm. And I used to play them to myself. Anyone grow up with Tony Robbins tapes or something similar? You got them in the car and you start pumping the good information into your head. And you don't know what you're doing at first, but you're just hoping that something sticks.
Yeah.
And you get some more results in life. But good to have you here. Excellent, Chris. So life coaching is for you. Wonderful. Who else do we got? We got anybody there from Sydney? I've got Vesna here. I think, Vesna, you're from Brisbane. Is that right?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. I'm new to this whole thing, so I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I actually came to one of your sessions a month ago.
Right.
And I really liked it, and I'm interested in a lot of the subjects that you do, so I thought I'll give it a try.
Yes. Now, the reason I do so many subjects, and I want you to know that NLP is the base. So NLP forms the base of what we do, and because it's emotional mastery. And if you gain control of your emotions, you actually gain control of your life. And that's kind of how this works. So you'll notice that I teach a bit about relationships, and I even do some on finances, and I do some different areas of life, but all of it comes back to NLP. When I run seminars, the first day I devote to NLP or neuro-linguistic programming, because that really gives us a foundation on which we can build a good solid structure. All right, who else have we got here? Oh, sorry, Vesna, go again.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is reprogram my subconscious.
Yep.
And I believe a lot of this can help.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, you're certainly in the right place. So with NLP, it was actually founded in 1976, which incidentally is the year that I was born. So that's when there was 2 men that got together. It was John Grinder and Richard Bandler. And one was a mathematician, the other one was a linguist. And they studied 3 different people in order to get what we have today as NLP. And the 3 people that they looked into was firstly Milton Erickson. The second one was Virginia Satir. And the third one was Fritz Perls, who was a German psychologist. And by studying these three people, they came up with a system that tended to work. You see, these three psychologists and teachers were actually getting tremendous results. They're getting better results than anybody else. And they wanted to know what was it about their style or their way of doing things that helped them to really create massive amounts of change. And what happened was, by studying into those, they looked at, first of all, well, let's look at Fritz Perls. He was a Gestalt therapist. And if any of you know what Gestalt therapy is, let's imagine that somebody was having issues perhaps with their father. So they've got issues with their father. What he might do is have them imagine that the chair was their father. So he'd walk over to the chair and he'd say, now tell the chair how you really feel about it. You know, tell your father, which is the chair, represented by the chair, tell your father how you really feel about him. And he might say something like, oh, you know, Dad, you never were really there for me. And he said, no, you're doing it wrong. He said, I want you to, this is your chance. This is your opportunity. Really tell your father what you really think. And he'd start to think, this person might go, well, Dad, you know, you could have been more supportive. You could have been more helpful. And he says, no, you're not getting it. He says, this is your opportunity. This is the time you get to really tell your father everything that you're feeling, everything you felt throughout your life. And then this person would get animated, would start to elevate their voice, begin yelling at the person or the chair, and really, you know, go full on. Some of them even got to the extent where they picked up the chair and started throwing it around, like actually broke it, shattered it across the floor. So the idea of this type of therapy was letting out those deep and even sometimes dark emotions. So we're dealing with sometimes shadow values, you know, the need for control or the need for superiority, the need for the feeling of dominance, letting out those shadow values. And that's Gestalt therapy. So I worked with one man actually on this same principle. He had a pornography addiction. And with his pornography addiction, he was having trouble breaking that, because all behavior is state dependent. This is something that I teach. And so if you can take control of your emotional state, you can either directly or inadvertently take control of your behavior. And so the idea is, behind every behavior, there's an emotional state. And so what we want to do is take control of our emotions, which is the base, and this is NLP, can help us do this. So I had this person work with me, and I had him imagine that a bottle, it was actually an empty water bottle. I said, imagine this is the pornography addiction. And then we threw it on the ground. I said, destroy it. Now, I didn't realize how tough bottles actually were. This bottle it had its lid on, and it was empty, but it was filled with air, and it had the lid on. And it was one of the thicker sort of bottles. So anyways, jumping up and down on it, it was just like a trampoline. It actually wasn't being destroyed. So I actually had to get the bottle back, take the lid off, then I threw it down on the ground again. I said, now destroy it, and he was able to. But the idea behind that was to dominate, or to get him to believe, whether consciously or unconsciously, that he was able to dominate that addiction, that problem that he had. And so he jumped up and down on this bottle and was able to dominate that. That's Gestalt therapy. And Gestalt therapy is very powerful, and it does work. All right, so the next one was Virginia Satir. Virginia Satir was a famous family therapist. And the thing about Virginia Satir, and what made her so great, was that she used a lot of language and just communication with people. In fact, she recognized that when people communicate, they use one of several different types of language. I'm going to put this somewhere. How's that? Can you see me if I'll grab a chair. Is that okay there? Can you see me clearly?
Yes.
No? Okay, good. So what Virginia Satir worked out was that people went into one of several types of postures. And these are known now today, and public speakers now use these. They're called Satir categories, coming from her surname. And so one of them was the computer. And so a person in the computer posture might do this, one arm crossed and one arm up under the chin. And this posture was something that somebody would take on when they're wanting either themselves or their audience to really go to their head, to really think or consider something. So a person standing like this might say, just consider this idea. And then they share an idea. Just consider that all behavior is state dependent. And as they're saying that, if they want people to really think about it, they would use this posture. Other postures there was one that was the leveler. And the leveler was used when you really want to make a point and push it home hard. And so you'd use the leveler. Another one, the placator. And the placator was like this. And so what she discovered was that by using different body language, you could invoke or evoke different emotions from the other person. And you could cause them to feel something that you wanted them to feel. And so the placator was more a gesture that showed that you were sincere, to show that you were being honest and being open. For example, with the placator, you'd hold your hands open this way, showing that you don't have a weapon. In fact, if you go back in history, the handshake was simply designed for that reason. Shaking someone's hand was a show that there was no weapon. You had an empty hand and you're ready to be that person's friend. And so it was a friendship thing. So you've got the placator. Another one was the distractor. So if, for example, you're losing attention or you wanted to bring them sharply back, or you wanted to change topic, then you would use the distractor. And this was another satire category where one arm might be up, one arm might be down, and you would use some open big gesture to gain everyone's attention back. And what was the last one? The last one was the blamer, where it was one finger forward and really pointing it out, and a parent would use the blamer. And so these satire categories, and what she discovered was that if she could help couples communicate better with each other, better with their families, that she could build strong family relationships and strong units. And that did in fact happen for her. And so she's another person they studied. And the third one that they studied was Milton Erickson. And Milton Erickson is the father of modern day hypnotherapy. So have you all heard of hypnosis? If you've heard of hypnosis, Milton Erickson was the man who single-handedly got the whole organization, the whole psychology world, to acknowledge hypnosis as a therapeutic modality, as something that could be used to create change in people, working not only with the conscious mind, but the unconscious mind, and able to create change in that way. And so that was the three of the two founders of NLP, and these were the three people that they studied. This was the foundation of what NLP was. Now let's look about what NLP actually does. So NLP is really the study of, like I said before, it's emotion and emotional state, making sure that you've got full control of your emotional state. That's NLP, is the study of that. You see, if I can control my emotions, I have more choices in every situation. If I get angry, then I limit my choices. But if I've got a flexibility of emotion, I don't have to stay in any one emotion for too long, and I can actually change my emotion. Now, the strongest way to change emotion isn't by thinking about it. See, thinking about it helps, but there's some tool that we have that's far more powerful than that, and that is the body, the physiology. And if we can take control of our body, then we inadvertently take control of our mind, and not our conscious mind, our unconscious mind. You see, there's a woman, and you can look this up on YouTube if you like. It's a TED Talk by a woman named Amy Cuddy. And so if you've got a pen, you might want to write that name down. But you really want to go and look at her work, because Amy Cuddy has done the science behind physiology. Now, what Amy Cuddy proved or showed people was that if you stand in a powerful, positive posture for as little as 2 minutes, you can increase the testosterone in your body by as much as 20%. So what we find is that using your physiology in a certain way has a direct relation to your chemicals, the chemistry in your body. Now, if you change the chemistry of your body, guess what happens? What happens is your emotions change the chemistry, and suddenly you feel differently. And so after teaching this, there are surgeons in the world today and others who, before performing a complex operation, will actually stand in what's called a power pose. And a power pose is simply a pose that's like Superman or like Wonder Woman. And a person will stand in such a way and also use a corresponding breathing pattern to bring about an emotional change within their body. And this is so powerful that even if you've gone through a bad experience, you can immediately, within 2 minutes, you can get yourself from feeling one way to feeling another way. And it's a really powerful way to do it. And so physiology, and a lot of times, trumps emotion. Because by using your physiology in a certain way, by breathing a certain way, you'll actually create different feelings in your body. And those feelings can have a powerful positive effect on you and on your life. Okay, sounds good. So a couple of people have saved that. Thanks for that. So if you have any messages, write them down for me. If you have any questions, you can write them down and I can answer the questions as I go because I'm looking on the screen and I can see the questions and the things that you write just pop up. So if you've got a question about something, something's not making a lot of sense, let me know and we'll see what we can do about that. Now, many years ago, and I first really got introduced to the power of the mind when I was 15 years old, around that time period. I went along to a seminar, my father paid for this, and it was called The Mind and You. Just out of interest, let me know if you've been to a seminar, like a live seminar on mindset or on NLP or on, some sort of growth or personal development. So if you've been to a seminar or a live seminar like that, let me know.
Yes.
You have done that, excellent. But if you want to type it in, let me know.
Oh,
if you've
sorry.
got in mind. No, it's good to say that. Some people haven't. Okay, I really recommend this as a thing to do, whether it be through a seminar or even a webinar. Webinars can also be helpful. It's different. We're still getting used to this platform, but I see now if you look into certain gyms, they're actually doing training sessions now through Zoom, which is really cool. So they're doing, gym training sessions and everything. So it's great to see the progress of this. Yes, at a health camp at Springbrook, excellent. All right, so good. So we've got some seminar experience behind us. So I went to this seminar called The Mind and You, and in this seminar I learned things like mental projection and mental rehearsal. And this is simply a way of using our mind to project into the future, to see the future before it happens. And in fact, that's how visionaries work. Visionaries look into the future and they see the future before it happens. And the best way to predict the future is to create it, to design the future the way you want to see it. And so some people will spend a lot of time really getting clear on what they want and designing their future and seeing it in their mind's eye happen exactly the way they want it. We know that sports people have been using this for years. We know that if you're, a Greg Norman fan or a Tiger Woods fan, just depending what era you were born in, or someone like Chuck Norris is one era, and then going forward, there's other fighters today in UFC. But these guys will spend a lot of time mentally rehearsing their wins. They do a lot of work that doesn't involve punching and kicking, or doesn't involve swinging and hitting that ball down the fairway. They do a lot of mental work to coincide with the actual physical work. Now, this is where success is born, because the mind doesn't know the difference between reality and fantasy. So if we create a vivid enough picture in our mind, your mind will just believe it. It'll believe that that's true, that that's the reality, that's the way it's going to happen. And once your mind believes that, then you can find yourself going into what we call alignment towards that. And what I call alignment is when your thoughts and your words and your desires and your intentions and your behaviors all match up, when they're all consistently flowing in the same direction. But what we find is a lot of people have either a values conflict, or they have limiting beliefs, or they have something which is causing them to have part of them wanting to go a certain way, but part of them not. It's like when you exercise or devise a new exercise program. You're very excited for the first few days, but then after a week or so, you yawn and think that, sleep's an important part of health too, and then you go back to bed after hitting the snooze on the alarm clock. Right? True or true? Okay, and this sometimes happens. So part of you wants the change, yet part of you is pulling you in another direction. I've heard it described this way, and it's something that I like, is you've got a jet engine on your back, but at the same time, you've also got an anchor tied to your leg. And so a lot of people think that in order to get results in life, in order to get really moving ahead, they need to add more fuel. They need to add more fuel to the system. And so they get more excited about things, they put more energy and effort into things, and yet what they find is they're really not progressing as far and as fast as they would like. Whereas a lot of the time, it's not about adding more fuel. It's not about trying to build your desire or put in more effort or work. It's simply about cutting those anchors. And we do that through exercises called emotional clearing. And what we'll do is go back into your past and look for repressed emotions or trapped emotions that have resulted from different situations, and we'll cut these things loose. And once we cut them loose, that's it. You can move forward more effortlessly and easily in the direction of that which you want, to the exclusion of those things now that you don't want, because you've severed or cut that anchor. You've cut yourself loose. And then we find people, and I had this happen in my life in 2015. It was just all in one direction. And it was probably the time in my life where I felt the most in harmony and focused. And I felt like I got into a situation which we call flow. And flow simply means that you almost unconsciously are doing or moving towards that which you desire and away from that which you don't want. Okay, so it's an unconscious thing. And we call it unconscious competence. So once you get into that unconscious competence, you no longer have to think about it. You just become almost like a robot, but heading towards success. Not a robot in doing the bad habits, but a robot in doing the good habits. You're doing them unconsciously. You're doing them, and it's happening below the level of conscious thought. If you've heard of the law of manifesting, or we call it the law of attraction, you see the law of attraction really only works, because they missed out a few things, is when you put in action and you make those actions unconscious. So you're doing them basically almost in your sleep. You're going through the motions consistently and continually. And you've got that emotional state backing those emotions, and you want to keep going with it. Okay, I hope that makes sense. All right, any questions about any of that? Some interesting stuff going on. All right, so let's move on. So NLP, let's get to the basics of NLP and what it is. But in order to do this, I want to tell you a couple of stories. So the first story is of a man called Matsui Oyama. Now, Matsui Oyama has passed away now. He was a karateka. He did karate in Japan. And he was raised in Japan, and he learned several styles of karate. And for a couple of styles, he went all the way to black belt. And he became a very good, very proficient fighter, but he felt that there was more in his learning and understanding. And incidentally, the word karate means empty hand, if you didn't know that. So in the same way I was talking about handshakes earlier, and the placater, karate means empty hand, meaning without a weapon. And so karate is a big thing in Japan and has always been. Masayama decided that he would go and meditate in a mountain to discover the ultimate truth. He later formed a style of karate called Kyokushinkai, which actually means the ultimate truth. So he went out into the mountain for 3 years, and this was an all-in-one hit. He actually meant to go for 3 years continually, but because of some family situation, he had to break it up. But he did go back to the mountains a second time and completed the full 3 years. So he spent 3 years on a mountaintop. During that time in the mountain, he would stand under freezing cold waterfalls, if you can imagine that. He would also go and find smooth rocks on the riverbank, and he would cut them open using a knife hand strike. So he was very much into his training. He was training up to 8 hours a day. He was meditating and also using his mind to an extreme level. And he had somebody bring him food, but everything else was just training. And it was to keep his mind and his body occupied on being the best, like being someone who discovered what he considered to be the ultimate truth. Now, after returning from that 3-year stint, that's 3 years of meditation and training, he went and did a tour of the USA, and he fought everybody who thought they had a chance. He fought boxers, he fought other people that did karate, he fought wrestlers, anybody thought they could compete against him. Not only did he win every fight, it's 270 fights, but none of the fights lasted more than about 30 seconds. And most of the fights were over within seconds. Because basically, if he struck you and you went to block, you would break your arm. If you didn't block and he hit your body, he'd break a bone. If you tried to punch him and he blocked you, he'd break your arm. So he became known as the God Hand. That's the actual nickname that they chose for him, was the God Hand. Now, during this time when I was going to this seminar, I started to believe that more was possible for my mind. And I saw myself being a karate champion. I saw myself in my mind's eye. I projected it. I dropped that goal in my future using a process which I now call strategic visioning. Whereas it's a process of dropping a goal into your future in a way that it actually occurs, not just giving it lip service, but in a way that it actually occurs. And so I went to this seminar. I then trained, not only physically, but trained my mind. And the time came for a tournament, and I decided to go in that tournament, utilizing the skills and the tools that I'd received, not only from my training, because we know that's important. We know that the physical component is absolutely necessary. But there's something about the mental training that's also necessary. Now, having seen that in my mind, I then went to this tournament with a belief in myself that I would go there and I would achieve victory. I actually believed that. And I walked into my first fight, and I took on, I was only green belt at the time, and my first fight was against a black belt. And I was somebody who had a very fast kick. So I could actually kick somebody in the head. Anyone done any martial arts or any form of fighting? This is my background, and I absolutely loved it. It was my way into discovering, what my body was capable of. Anyway, doing this, I've gone into a bit of Taekwondo there, good stuff. So I've gone into this fight, and I had this one technique that I would use. I would go for a low kick, and then I would go for a low kick, and then the third one I would pretend I was going to do a low kick, and then I would bring my leg in, out, and then over the top, and I would actually turn it into a head kick. And it was quite a powerful move. I used that twice on him, and I hit him both times. Hit him in the head. After the second hit, they sort of stopped the fight, and that bout was over. I went there for my second fight, and I fought another guy who was a higher rank than myself. And as I was fighting him, I also had another technique that I was very good at, which was a side kick, or a front kick. I was very good at front kick. I had strong, powerful legs and hips. And I used this front kick on him, and I actually turned it into a side kick, and I kicked him from the karate mat, if you can imagine this, and I kicked him absolutely off the mat. And he went off the mat and into the crowd, which was great. Then in my third fight, I fought a guy who was a lesser grade than me, but he was also the son of a man by the name of Shihan Taylor. And Shihan Taylor was the highest black belt in Australia of this specific style of karate. So he was a black belt 7th Dan, and he was the highest ranking in Australia. His son was a very good fighter, and he was my third fight. So he won 2, I'd won 2, and here we were. It's a knockout competition, and I had to get through this fight. Now, we did the fight, and I'll tell you, it was hard. It was harder than both of the other two. The guy hit hard. I was hitting as hard as I could back. We went into overtime because there was no definite winner. And so they took us into overtime, and I didn't want to go to overtime. I was already tired from the last 2 fights, and now we've done overtime. So here we are, almost, it feels like we're on our 4th fight. And so I'm on this mat, I'm taking this guy on, and I went to do a low kick, and I put all my energy and effort into it. He thought the exact same thing, and he went to do a low kick. And you're not going to believe it, but our knees clashed together. We just smashed our kneecaps together. And it was one of the most painful things physically that I'd ever experienced. Just smashing my kneecap into another guy, like with full force, and he doing the same thing. And after clashing, and I felt the pain, I didn't feel the pain as much until I tried to stand up on my leg. And as I put my leg back, I almost collapsed. And I looked over at my opponent, and I saw his face grimace. And I thought to myself, now's my chance. And who's ever heard that much of a fight is a mental game? It's not the physical game. That's actually absolutely true. And that's what I discovered here, that the fight is not a physical game, especially when you're in this much pain. It becomes 100% a mental game. It becomes how well can we use our mind, because the mind is the key here. I mean, is it mind over body? Is it body over mind? Which one's going to win? The body's saying, I need to stop, but the mind says, no, we fight on. Because the adrenaline's going, the pain is lessened, but there's still pain. And if it's enough pain, you want to stop, and your body's saying, you need to stop. And that's what my body was saying to me. But I saw that grimace on his face, and I decided that I would show no pain. And so I pretended that I was okay. I tried to put weight on my back leg, and I nearly collapsed again. So I put most of the weight on my front leg. I knew I couldn't kick with my front leg because my back leg couldn't handle the weight. I knew I didn't want to kick with my back leg because I didn't want to hit my knee again. If a feather touched that knee, I would be crying in pain. Okay, so here I am hopping around, and I decided, well, I'll do the best thing that I can do. I just hopped forward and began punching him, and he hopped backwards. So I hopped forward again and began punching, and I just kept doing that. And I tell you what, if you've ever been in a fight, 2 minutes, and that's all the round was, 2 minutes, it feels like an eternity. It feels like it's never going to end. I was thinking, if I just do this once or twice, it'll be all over. It wasn't so. It just kept going. It felt like about 30 minutes. Here I am. I've got no breath in my lungs. I've got a knee that's in agony, and I'm chasing this guy around, hopping after him, and he's hopping backwards, and I'm giving it everything I've got. Now, at the end of the fight, I ended up winning the fight, and I ended up becoming the Australian karate champion from that. And that was a wonderful achievement at age 16. Really wonderful achievement. That achievement really showed me that the mind is capable of anything. The mind is capable of whatever we want. If there's something you want, the mind's capable of it. Now, I didn't know NLP back then. I'd started learning about, a little bit about the mind, but it wasn't till I got into my 20s that I really started putting NLP to practice and learning about what this was. What is NLP? Well, NLP is a way of using our mind to create different feelings or emotions in our body so that we can then get new results. And that's it. That's as simply as it is. That if you want new results, if you want new behaviors, then you've got to feel differently. You've got to feel different emotions. Because if you feel a different emotion and you feel that emotion for a day or a week, that turns into a mood. So if you find someone who's in a mood, they're angry, and let's say they've been angry for 5 minutes, they're just angry. But if they've been angry for 3 hours, that's a mood. All right? Or if they've been angry for a week or a month, it turns from a mood into a temperament. And so what sort of person are they? Well, they've got an angry temperament. Like every time I see them, there's something to be angry about. And you probably know people like this. They're angry. And you probably know people who are happy, people who are jovial, people who are sad or depressed. What happens is we get used to running in our system the same emotional patterns. And that's what we do. We run them over and over again. And the habit that we want to break, which is the hardest habit to break, if you think about all the habits in your life, I'll tell you what the hardest habit to break is. It's the habit of being yourself. Because you're with yourself 24 hours a day. And whatever emotions you've run that have turned into moods, that have then turned into temperaments, this becomes you. Because when you run a temperament for several months or even years, it becomes a disposition. And if you run that disposition long enough, it turns into part of your personality or even part of your personal reality. And so here we have people who run these emotions in their life over and over again consistently, and these emotions lead to moods, moods lead to temperaments, temperaments lead to disposition, and disposition becomes their personality trait or personal reality. So is that interesting? That's how it works. And so NLP is saying, well, wait a minute, I don't want to be this way. I want to be somewhat different. I want to get different results. Now, you're not getting different results by working harder. You're not going to get different results by changing something in the neocortex, in your rational thinking, and also lying brain, because we lie constantly to ourselves. That's what we do, human nature. The way that we're going to get change, permanent change, is by working with the other two parts of the brain. So we have three parts of the brain. You may be aware of this, maybe not, that you actually have three brains, not one. You have a neocortex, which is your new brain. That's your rational thinking brain. That's your brain, the part of your brain that puts sentences together. That's the part of your brain that thinks logically about things. But that's not the most powerful brain you have. A lot of us think it is. We're so much smarter than children, right? So because we've got this new brain, this neocortex, that is usually the least informed and the last to know anything is this neocortex. Because when you have an injury come out in your body, or you have a pain surface in your body somewhere, that pain could have been because of something that happened, or it could have been because of a trapped or repressed emotion. And your unconscious mind has known about this trapped emotion for a long time, far longer than you know about it consciously. You only begin to know about it consciously when it shows up and you go, oh, my elbow's sore, oh, my knee's sore, or I've got something wrong. There's a pain inside, and it's now becoming consistent. Now you become consciously aware of it. But your unconscious mind has known about that for a long time. So that's why your neocortex is the least informed, it's the last to know. We have another brain, which is our limbic system. Now, the limbic system is our middle brain, and some people also refer to it as the mammalian brain, the brain that mammals have, dogs and cats. It's the house of our emotions. What I should say is dogs and cats also have a neocortex, but it's very small, whereas their mammalian brain is very large. Whereas for us, our new brain is a large brain that's wrapped around our limbic system, or the mammalian brain. Now, the third brain that you have is right on top of the brain, the spine. And it's right near the brain stem, and it's called the reptilian complex. And some people refer to this as the lizard brain. And the lizard brain, believe it or not, is the most powerful brain of all. And you say, what? How can the lizard brain be? Think about it this way. Inside your body, you have somewhere between 70 and 100 trillion cells. Each of those cells has somewhere between 50 to 100,000 chemical reactions occurring every second. And you've got a brain that controls all of that. You've got a brain that breathes you, whether you're awake or asleep. Your mind is active. Your blood is pumping around your body consistently every day. Your heart beats over 100,000 times a day. You have valves that control the flow of blood, and these valves open and close in corresponding time to your heartbeat. These valves are as pliable as a parachute. The material of it is as pliable as a parachute, yet soft as a silk scarf. No man-made instrument has ever been made that can be flexed so often without breaking. Your body is incredible. You also have a lymphatic system throughout your body that works without you thinking about it. You have hair to grow. You have fingernails to grow. You have systems that take place in your body that you don't have to think about at all. You can put all of your attention on whatever you want to think about it. And all these systems in your body work below the surface of conscious thought. And that's why that brain, the reptilian complex, is the most powerful brain of all. Now let's talk about change. Let's talk about slow change as opposed to fast change. First of all, does anybody have any questions about the three brains? Any thoughts or comments on those? All right, very good. Good stuff. And hopefully you've heard a lot of this stuff before. This is just a reinforcement. But if you haven't, then yeah, get some notes out. Take some notes, because this is really good to understand. And it's really good at that base level to understand how the brain works, how the mind, body, everything all works. It's a wonderful system. It's a perfect system, and it works very well.